So welcome to the Time Use Week 2021. This afternoon we will discuss about the European Academy of Time Policies. In order to establish sustainable time policies at local, regional, national and European level, a common European space is needed which systematically develops this policy field, bringing together experiences of local and national actors, of practitioners and researchers, and developing cooperation between civil society, economy and political governance. So we will start with Jean-Yves Boulin from Tempo Territorial and Ulrich Mückenberger from the German Society for Time, who will introduce the European Academy for Time Policies proposal. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just see Ulrich. Well, this is the correct Ulrich name on the screen now. Yes, thank you for introducing us, Elisa. And the idea of a European Academy of Time Policy has a long history, in fact. It stems from the Strasbourg Conference of Tempo Territorial, which had the title Time for Everybody, a Right for All. And this concept of a right to time is at the basis of it. It was mentioned quite frequently this morning already by the politicians, and I'm happy about that. And I do one panel in the YATUR conference on the right to time, where I shall explain what we understand under right to time, because it's a very complicated right, I must admit. This idea of a European Academy has clear European sources, and this is why it is a European project. The sources, you know, it came from Italy. Le donne cambiano il tempo. This was the first draft of a law in Italy, which dated from 1986, something like that. I spent 1 year in Florence, and at that time, in 1989, I contacted these people, and among them was the important Livia Turco, who later on, as a minister of the Italian government, introduced in 2000 the law on time policies, national law, a first one in Europe. Then you see here on the slide, Eurexter, Excellence Territoriale en Europe. That was an association, a transnational association, which circulated time policies. It was created in about 1992. And from that stemmed a lot of time bureaus and time initiatives. But what was particularly important is that at that time began first transnational academic courses on time policy. We did a course in Germany and Italy, of course, Piacenza, a side university of Milano. They introduced the first master program in time policies at that earlier time already. And then there was a spreading time office in Italy, France, Germany, Netherlands, and so on. And a first city network with the focus on time policies, which seems to be now renewed under the Barcelona Time Use Initiative, which is, in my view, a very important step. Then came 2010, Council of Europe. The Council of Europe, you know, this is a separate organization, which has a Congress of local and regional authorities, and they passed a recommendation and a decision which underlined, we cannot read the text, that the time offices should be built, that national and regional legislation should make time offices and time planning observatory. And they already proposed you should have a sort of excellence Academy and the Right to Time, we draw up a memorandum, a European memorandum on time policies, right to time, and the European Academy, which further on went into the Barcelona Declaration. With this memorandum, we went to the European Commission. First of all, we sent a letter to Ursula von der Leyen, and because as a German Minister of Family Policy, she was the first one who mentioned time policy as a key element of family policies. And we wrote to her. She answered very positively, but said, I have not enough time to herself of that. And that she referred it, no time, yes, and she referred it to the Employment General Directorate. And the Employment Directorate, again in April 21, replied, a proposal contains many important issues you raise in your letter, a new philosophy of time, and we did a lot of it, but we cannot do all because it's a transversal subject. And this is why the DG Employment referred or gave away the subject, the dossier, to the General Secretariat. This is the General Secretariat is a European institution covering all different branches, but the General Secretariat answered, it's very challenging in their long-term nature, a green and inclusive transition. They said it has to do with the Green Deal. But you should try to go into the Future of Europe process, which was mentioned already, in the Future of Europe process, and then bring it forth. Okay, so positive resonance, but no practical support. And we are sure that the Academy, this is my last slide, and possibly Jean-Yves will add something. Of course, we cannot set up from one day to the other a European Academy with such a beautiful building like the St. Paul, which we have here. Possibly we should start with a more virtual academy, like the weeks, the time use weeks, which Barcelona drew up, or the elements which the workshops, online workshops, which you drew up on the 15-minute city, on the healthy city, and so on. These are already steps towards that. And when I had a talk about the Academy with a young green European member of the European Parliament, who will speak on Friday on the Barcelona Declaration, he said to me, why not make a European pilot project which comes out of the European Parliament, supported by Green, Social Democrat, Conservative, not right-wing, but all other factions of the members of the European Parliament. That means the European Academy is the objective, but there have to be steps to be thought in between, first steps like virtual academy, like a pilot project, and then the collective conscience be raised for such an objective. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jean-Yves?
Oh, yeah, thank you, Elisa. But I think it's not necessary to add many things at this moment. Just to answer to your question or in the discussion. Perhaps just to say one thing, it's Ulrich have insisted on the role of this academy if we succeed. The question is why a European academy at this time? Because you know, I think that the problem, we were at the origin of time policies. I mean, for instance, development of atypical working hours, or also the problem of inequalities between gender inequalities and social inequalities. You know, time, when you think about time, you see immediately that there are inequalities between different social categories, gender, and so age also. All this problem has continued to exist, you know, even if in the cities or metropolitan area where there has been time policies, there has been a lot of improvement of the situation, but it's only some kind of islands, you know, in Europe and in different countries. But in this, the context is, so this problem continue, but the new problems have arrived. For instance, the digitalization, you know, numerization and so on, with acceleration of time, of the feeling of an acceleration, and also the climate change. We, you know, during the last year, we saw also a lot of studies, research who insist on the fact that the time could be a lever to tackle the climate change. For instance, working time. For instance, we talk about the 4 days working week this morning. This is also one of the objectives, you know, of this project, and also. The context post-pandemic, post-COVID-19 is also has also put on the agenda the time issues, because, for instance, desynchronization of working hours, working schedules, for instance, in order to avoid proximity of people and so on. So time, it's really something which is very important at this moment, and to develop time policies and to try to, and the other, the last point I want to stress, and it has been already raised by Ulrich, but is the fact that, you know, time policy has begun at the local level. And we have developed, not we, but cities and metropolitan and a lot of actors at the local level have developed a lot of initiative. And it is necessary now to have link. So there are also some linkages with national or regional levels, mainly, I think not mainly, but only in Italy. In Italy, you have, as it has been said by Ulrich, there has been local initiative, and then a national law, and then regional laws. So you see, they have tried to link the different levels, the local levels, different regional and national and local levels. So I think it's there is another level. The European level is important also.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So now we will see short videos from different stakeholders stating the significance of the European Academy for Time Policies for their organizations. And we start with Isabel Schumann from the European Trade Union Confederation.
Dear Ulrich, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, let me first start by congratulating you for this key initiative and by thanking you for inviting the European Trade Union Confederation to this adventure. Your call for a European Academy of Time Policy is long overdue. Why? Because time, like data, is gold. It is a precious individual good. Time perception and time sovereignty are the essence of human development and control over one's own destiny and dignity. Working time needs regulation to guarantee decent work, good working conditions, fair wages, occupational health and safety, work-life balance, to name but a few. However, time, like labor, should not be a commodity. Regulating working time has been one of the hardest and still permanent battles of the trading movement. As early as the French Déclaration des droits de l'homme et du citoyen that stated any man may engage his service and his time, but he cannot sell himself nor be sold. His person is not alienable property. The 8-hour day was regulated in one of the first conventions of the International Labour Organizations in 1919. At the European level, the European Working Time Directive of 1993 regulates minimum daily and weekly rest periods, annual leave, breaks, maximum weekly working time of 48 hours, night work, shift work, and patterns of work. Its minimum requirements are binding for all member states of the European Union and prevent employers from getting a competitive advantage by putting pressure on workers to accept long and irregular working time. Since then, no courageous political initiative has been attempted to get rid of far-reaching derogation allowing for enormous unlimited extensions of working hours. In addition, the definition of working time is regularly challenged, for example, on the issue of on-call time. Trade union campaigns hard to adapt working time to the need of workers. As early as the 1950s, our German colleagues noted that industrial workers would prefer a Saturday off to a daily reduction in working hours in order to spend more time with the family. The resulting campaign for a 5-day week with the slogan, "On Saturday, Daddy belongs to me," is one of the milestones of the German trade movement's achievement. In 2002, the ETUC and the European Employers Associations agreed on a European agreement on telework. Since then, the digital transformation exacerbated by the pandemic has transformed telework into the new normal, blurring the boundary between private and professional time and leading to an increase of unpaid overtime. The trade unions throughout Europe are on the offensive to frame such development. The reduction of working time is regularly discussed, in particular at sector level, as a means to address challenge of unemployment, to facilitate access to and transition into the labour market and reduce inequality. Will working time reduction be the means to manage digital and climate transitions and to allow for a more resilient society and put the well-being of people and workers back at the centre of public policies? Dear Ulrich, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, today it is more relevant than ever to reflect on time policies for a sustainable future. Therefore, we are much looking forward to the discussions, the debate and the delivery of the European Academy of Time Policy.
Second video is Klaus Stoffer from the Institute for Advanced Sustainable Studies.
Friends and colleagues, time. What a word of a miracle, what a word of highest importance, what a time for all the people in the world. I have in my hand a little booklet from the old Latin philosopher Seneca. The title of this booklet, little booklet, you see it in my hand, is "Life is Short." And he is explaining and discussing the topics that people are not convinced that they have to concentrate to now. They are always concentrated to tomorrow or yesterday. And doing this, they are losing the feeling of time, and time is running and life is short. So this is one aspect of time. But time has a lot of other aspects as well. If you see it with regard to the work time of a person, the time of being together in leisure and enjoying nature, all this is time consuming. So time consumption must be a very important field of scientific considerations, knowing that what we ever do, it is limited in our lifetime, And it is the result of our life now and the organization of time. Therefore, it is good to learn that you are starting to have a new institute concentrated to time theory, to combine it already with the concrete recommendation and integration of the broader public, of those who are not aware that they are wasting time and therefore wasting their life. To come back to Seneca once more, he also comes to the conclusion, life is not short, but we, in our handling of time, have the feeling at the end that life was very short. A good idea to ask in all the dimension of science a new integrating topic that is time theory. All the best for you and for your activities and your discussions. And I hope that you will start a new institute, a very, very important part for the time in future and the concentration to the important parts. Use your time, and life is not short.
Now our last video, Shiva Basu from Club O'Clock.
Greetings from Bangalore, India. This is Shiva Basu, and I am heartened to know that the Barcelona Time Use Initiative is proposing the formation of the European Academy for Time Policies, and I applaud the organization for making great efforts towards this end. I wish it much success and hope that it will bring about greater awareness of the need to prioritize health of humans and other organisms that inhabit this planet over other shorter-term economic goals. In addition to the expected goals of such an academy, which may be largely centered on creating policies around human health and well-being, I hope that the academy will also be mindful to address the problems that are created by human activities, thus enlarging the duration of daytime by the use of artificial light, as well as the presence of several other human activity-induced abiotic factors such as noise, temperature, and the presence of several pollutants in the atmosphere. The academy might wish to expand its scope towards ecologically relevant perturbations that are caused by increased duration of human activity on other organisms, including numerous plants and insects. We are only beginning to understand the profound impact of artificial light at night on the physiology of plants and their pollinators, many migratory species of reptiles and birds. One can only imagine that there are several yet unknown consequences of such chronic exposure to artificial light at night on our ecology. This would be relevant when thinking about nighttime lighting in places such as parks, lakefronts, beaches, especially in urban and suburban areas. The academy could influence cooperators or civil administrators in implementing policies to minimize nighttime light and ensure the use of energy-efficient light sources that have minimal blue light composition. The research in my group at the Jawaharlal Nehru Center at Bangalore is centered on understanding rhythmic behaviors and their underlying clocks, as well as the evolution of such clocks and their underlying neuronal circuitry. We will be happy to join the discussion at the Academy and contribute our understanding of how environmental factors shape changes in clock evolution. Thank you.
Very interesting recommendations. We will continue now with our panel here. We have Ignace Glorieux, International Association for Time Use Research President. We have also Francesca Saizik, which she will be online, advisor to the Milan City Council. Sara Berbel, Barcelona City Council CEO, and Ariadna Güell, Barcelona Time Use Initiative for a Healthy Society Coordinator. So we will start with 2 questions, and after there will be an open public discussion with the audience. Is the European Academy for Time Policies necessary? If yes, what should it look like? Ignace, you can begin.
Well, yeah, I think it's necessary. Well, it was already made clear by the former speakers. I think that there's a more and more an awareness that time is a crucial thing in social organization, in making lives of people healthier, making lives of people happier. It's an important factor. I think, well, I started as a researcher in time use 40 years ago, and then people wondered what I was doing and why was time something important in social life. I don't think this is something many people question, especially after the COVID crisis. More people are even aware that it is crucial how we organize our societies in the temporal dimension. And I think this academy, as was mentioned, has an important role to play. Well, me as the president of the Association for Time Use Research, I think we as researchers, we are researchers, well, as Ulrich also already pointed out, I think we should bring in evidence in all kinds of spheres. Where is it daylight saving times, which was your example? I think we need to study what is the impact, positive or negative. I think the debate now is not very objective in my point of view. We should study it. Flexible working times, the right to disconnect, something that was discussed this morning, and well, homework, all that kind of things, gender equality, it all has to do with time. So we have to study it, and well, the more we study it, the more evidence we bring. Well, it should be the base for time use policies, time policies, and I think the academy can bring these things together. And well, of course, it's a dream in the future, and I agree we should do it incremental. But the ideal would be a real institute with researchers, policymakers, people from institutions in the practice, and just bring everything together and think about time policies. I think this is, it's really necessary.
Thank you, Ignace. And now we will have Francesca online. I think she will appear in the screen.
Good afternoon, and thanks very, very much for the invitation. I am a researcher and urban sociologist, but I have also been an advisor in urban time policies for the municipality of Milan. And precisely because of these skills and experiences, I think that having an academy is very important. First of all, because it underlines the need for a connection between experiences and subjects who work on the issue of times. In this way, it is possible to include small and large subjects already advanced in reflection or at the beginning in the research work on times. By the way, a circularity of thought is created, making those at the center of the network grow together with those on the periphery. It is known that even in the same city, there can be fragmentation and distance between actors who act on similar activities and policies. In Milan, for example, this is my personal experience, unfortunately, not only universities and institutions do not dialogue on the issue of temporal policies, but there is no exchange or comparison even between the institutions themselves. The academy can help create relationships, exchanges, analysis of experiences. COVID-19 changed the rhythm of cities, reshaping the times of its inhabitants. Smart working, as we know, and remote teaching for young people have determined for people, especially for women, a reorganization of daily time from that of work to that of care, and therefore also to that for oneself. We need to think about how to best use this experience, both individually and collectively. For example, in Italy, now many workers of the public administration return to the presence. But the new smart working contracts must follow precise rules. For example, there is the right to disconnect for 11 hours, starting from the end of one's work shift. I say, how will this impact on people's daily organizations? In the same way, a recent resolution of the municipality of Milan has established new hours of entering schools, shops, businesses. Also, in this case, it seems to me that no one has raised the problem of what happens to workers, also in this case, especially female workers, maybe with children, who suddenly find themselves in having to reshape the personal and family temporal day. But an academy is not all important to pass on concrete experiences. It is important to open and pursue an innovative vision of times, a vision that takes into account the new issues that cities and society have to face. As was said before me, from climate change to sustainability to economic and social inclusion. However, I want to emphasize that creating an academy is possible, but it is much more difficult to make it exist, grow, produce results. This is why it is important that there is the opportunity to do research, to have funds for young researchers, and also to organize, I don't know, some moments, maybe 2 moments a year or specific topics in order to allow concrete meetings and regular exchanges of ideas on times and urban times policy. Thank you.
I Francesca, Sara Berbel, t'escoltem.
Moltes gràcies. Parlaré en...
Great to listen to you. Sara Berbel explaining in Catalan. Well, it is fantastic to listen to my colleague in this panel, Ulrich, when I've been looking at he's taken a historical look at different policies on time. He's clearly said that they are generally European, and that is why it makes sense to have a European Academy. And as he was saying, when he was in Italy, and afterwards the PCI, the Communist Party, attempted to bring to the fore the law on time. We in Barcelona were pushing forward these policies. And for instance, back in 1992, a group of women in the city of Barcelona, allied with the city council, and we're talking about quite a few years ago, drew up a program, Women Change the World. Sorry, says the speaker, Women Change Time. That's the same name that Italian woman back in 1986, as Ulrich mentioned. That's the same name they had used to develop and flesh out these programs, adding ourselves to all this European trajectory. And in 2003, Barcelona was the first Spanish city, or even European city, which created an office for social uses of time, run by a city councillor, so a political body aimed at promoting a better organization of time in the world of work, but also in the private world. And from that office, run by under the responsibility of the City Council, we drew up a whole series of studies, of dossiers, and we looked at all the science which is produced from Barcelona. And I did a compilation and for all the timetable reform. And we have lots of studies concerning inequality, concerning women, and sort of poverty concerning time, also broken down by neighborhoods and districts, also looking at young people and their relationship with time. So we have a lot of production and research. And some of the people who are here and have been here this morning were part and parcel of all these studies. And we were joining this European current. And I was quite moved because we, right from the outset, we form part of this European current of policies concerning time. And it really is very, very meaningful and significant to have a EATP to go forward, to move forward. Why? Because there are a whole set of challenges out there, which the pandemic has only accelerated, but was beginning beforehand. The increase in the use of technology, immense and huge pace, and has made us adopt hybrid models at work, where you have in-person presence at work and also together with working from home or teleworking. And there had been some examples before, and in certain European countries it was very minority, but now the pandemic has really has opened the floodgates, so to speak. And there are people who work from places which are not the workplace. All this phenomenon of these hot desking, where the persons can have their desk at their work, where if you go to the office once a week at least, they can be convened. All these are new formulae, and we have to be aware how they have a bearing, what impact they have, and they must be regulated to avoid abuses. During the pandemic, I had to set out an instruction within the City Council to regulate digital disconnection, because otherwise there was a moment when people were, everyone was working at all times, people were burnt out, and okay, a pandemic is an extraordinary situation, but that could not be, and certainly could not be a permanent trend. So to regulate all these new challenges we have, right? At the same time as we cannot damage health, we also should be able to evaluate, to see the metrics and how this is impacting on the environment. That is something which before we do not bear in mind when we're talking of time policy. Why do I say that? Because if we cut back traveling or transport, this obviously was very positive for environmental health. You cut back emissions, well and true. This is a new aspect of uses of time policy, has to do with the environment. And this morning we have talked of a 4-day working week. So there are a whole bunch of challenges out there, and we have to evaluate their impact on health, on productivity, on people's lives. And furthermore, there is an important point that the Academy could deal with. We need to link that to praxis. Because, okay, we're going to have a wonderful work in 43 years in the Congress concerning time use research. And there's a lot of research, but we need to link that with hard practice. How all that can turn into sort of practices and decisions which will change people's lives. And the best practice, example of best practice or benchmarks which the Academy could bring forth, and all policies have to be evaluated and monitored. Sometimes we forget about that. It has to be done as well. And we will provide all our support to this new Academy, which doesn't just stay as a good wish, but actually happens. Ariadna Güell.
I wanted to say have been popping up already. And I also wanted to a bit reflect on our experience as association. So for those of you that do not know it, the Barcelona Time Use Initiative actually is taking the legacy of a Catalan initiative. Previous to that, the Iniciativa per la Reforma Horària, which advocated from civil society for a change on the way we organize our time. So we had this experience in Catalonia, and I think that some of the lessons there are very valid for the future of the academy. So I just wanted to highlight some of these here in this panel. First, and this is something that has come up in all your interventions, is this capacity to combine different areas of expertise. And I think that in this panel we are mostly sociologists and social science, let's say, people. But I think that one of the good things that we have in our association is that we have been able to also bring their chronobiologists, doctors, so lots of different expertise. Shiva was talking about the effect of the light on the ecosystems and how our schedules of artificial light are affecting them. So I think that the academy to success needs to integrate this knowledge, and I think this is key because we saw it when we started in Catalonia, right? That we had really good sleep doctors talking about why we sleep. We had bad sleep, and we had very good sociologists talking about the differences between men and women, but they didn't know each other, and actually part of the sleep problems probably are explained for the gender differences and the extra obligations women have in their time. So these cross areas of expertise, I think, are key, together with what Ulrich mentioned, to put together policymakers with researchers, with society. And actually this is why we chosen the motto of Time Use Week this year, which is connecting research to public policy, society, and organizations. And I think that this is something that is shared by everyone here, that we need to do this connection. Second thing I wanted to emphasize was sponsorship. There's a financial part of the sponsorship, which is key, of course. But I think that this is something that we can build up with time, and I'm sure we will find a way. And second part of a sponsorship for us is the political sponsorship. So the political in the most broader sense possible. So political, not only politicians, but also civil society, business associations, trade unions. So this model on which we bring everyone together in the table and that we build this sponsorship. And I think we have an excellent panel here today because we have people from the City Council, we have researchers, we have had during this week as well people from trade unions and business associations we will have. So this building this political sponsorship to this project for me is key. So I would say we are on the right track as the proposal goes, but just keep these two issues in mind. Then another element that I think Ulrich commented was about the structure and how we can start virtual, right? Or not in such a fixed or big structure. And I think that this is absolutely key. We can start building, we are now building the academy actually, right, with this panel. So I think it's great that we are able to start doing things together because then when we finally receive financial support, let's say, we will know what to do, we will know who to call, we will know what we want out of the academy. And I think this seems a bit not so solid, but I think that it's actually building a solid basis for the academy to happen in the future. And then also just to finish up, I think that the academy should take on what we are calling, I think in the debates we organized this year, we're calling it second generation time policies. And you made a very beautiful walk through the history of time policies. And I think that we need to keep the academy current, and that means adding issues or challenges, especially the climate emergency, probably like the most pressing challenge, but also digitalization. And also I think that even if the feminists started in somehow, no, the time policies worry or the time policies in the agenda, I think that the feminists also have brought a lot of new things to the table when we talk about care policies and all this. It's really related to time policies, and we need to let's say, refresh our initial approach and bring this on so that the academy actually tackles the pressing issues of our time, let's say, in that sense. So, of course, it's needed, and I hope it has great success.
Thank you. We will now continue the panel with open questions from the audience. Are there any questions for Ulrich, Jean-Yves, Francesca, Sara, Ignace, or Ariadna? Hi ha preguntes del públic en anglès.
Any question from the audience?
Maybe there will be a first hand that will raise. If not, I have prepared some questions, but I hope we have the opportunity not to be now in a virtual space. So maybe some questions? Yes, I will start, and then if someone wants to add some questions, we will continue. So I have prepared some questions because, as you were telling, Ariadna, this leitmotif of the Congress is this connection between time use research and policies and organizations and society, and I think this is at the core of this Time Use Academy. So what is the key to connect this time use research with public policies, organizations, and society? This is my first question. Then I have a second question. You have talked also about important issues, but which are these main issues that the European Academy for Time Policies will have to focus on, let's say, in the first 1, 2, or 3 years? No? Which are these main issues? And my third question, what are the first steps? You were talking a little bit about that. Ulrich, what are the first steps to build a European Academy for time policies? So who wants to start? And if someone of the public wants to add a question, you are invited. Who wants to start? This connection between the research and practice, the important issues, the first steps?
Perhaps just to say something about that, because what come to my mind is the fact that, for instance, in Italy, Francesca and Ulrich know that very much also. There has been a momentum with, as Ulrich has recalled, about there has been a kind of courses, international courses. But before that, there was also in Politecnico di Milano, with Sandra Bonfiglioli, a lot of students who has studied and began to not only study but innovate also methodologies, new methodologies of representation, for instance, chronomaps and so on. And it is interesting to see that it was an urbanistic approach. Most of the students were studying urbanism, and so they have the ability to make representation, to make maps, and so on. And but this has been stopped. As we said, there are some, and it's a pity because. So the necessity to have a European Time Academy is to have a continuing process of training students. The students has been after they has worked in Bergamo, in Bolzano, in Cremona, in different cities, and they have monitored projects. They have so I think it's very important. This is what is important for European Academy, but European Academy is also to have students from different countries. So we can start as an open academy, open university, distant we know that. Before having an institution, perhaps it's not necessary to have a stabilized and located institution. I think it's important, but we have to see. We have to think about that because it's expensive to have more expensive. We have to find, but so I think it's very important to have this continuity in training and of people. It's recalled me also there was also another branch, disciplinary. It was time geography, for instance. It was the school of Egerstrand in Sweden. And it's also this academy as, not academy, but this kind of approach of discipline has known a very important, it was important during the 60s and 70s, for instance, with the work of Hagerstraat, Bolentorp, and so on. And this is more or less stopped. So it's also a way to try to reconsider that and reconstruct something like that. I think this is for me something very important.
Sarah?
Yes, I agree, and I was going to answer to your first question in a similar way, because I think that you asked which is the link between the research and the practice, or the good practices, yes? And I think that the answer is network. I mean that we need to maintain a huge network in the academy, in our future academy, where we have researchers, students, trade unions, policy makers, and all kinds of organizations. Because this is the clue to know where are we going and how to link our objectives and the things that we want to do in this academy with the real practice, and to evaluate the real changes that are becoming in the society. And I think that we need a methodology to work in this network. It's not a spontaneous thing. I mean that we need to work on it.
And just a question, what happens if in this network there are these different stakeholders, but what happens when they speak different languages, no? The academic language is very different from the day-to-day in a city hall, for example, no? Or you think it's not so far?
Well, it's far, but network can bring this together. I think researchers should leave their offices and participate in initiatives like this, just to feel how people's lives are in reality, not just in figures or statistics, but bringing these things together in both directions. I think it should go in both directions, but if researchers stay in their offices and study theories, and it doesn't go down, but it should go up also. It's both ways. And I think an important aspect is, of course, in that is an open mind from both sides. No taboos, because, well, at the ground level and the grassroots movement, so to say, there are also taboos, and activists are not always objective. So they should be open as well. If research gives some facts, well, we can discuss it. They should not accept it, but they should at least discuss it and not neglect it because it's not what they want. And that is often the case too, I guess. It should be open mind in both directions, but at first they should meet, and that's what these networks can do. Just researchers participating, not from a high, not from academia, but just participating, and so we can learn a lot, I think.
Yeah.
Ulrich?
Just at one point, I don't know how it can develop today or tomorrow, but I take the experience of Eurexter, Excellence Territoriale en Europe. That was a project set up by the European Social Dialogue, by the social partners in Brussels, trade unions, ETUC, and employers, CEEP, the public employers. And they associated with universities. That means University of Bremen, it was Politecnico di Milano, it was Paris Dauphine, and others. So So there was this connection. And I'm always a bit uncertain why this has broken down in between. This, I know it from my university that the work of professors on and with workers is rare now. It was very, very diffused. It was very frequent earlier that you had a theory-practice relationship. But I have the feeling that with the, for example, with Friday for Future, you mentioned Ariane mentioned the current problems of, or issues which are at stake. And so if you speak with the Friday Friday of Future,
Not Friday, I don't.
people, you discover a new interest in a relationship between theory and practice, and between programs and implementation. And so on. And that could give a new chance for this connection, which you mentioned as first question.
Okay. Now Francesca wants to speak.
Oh, yes. But the problem is how to connect in practice different actors, different subjects, different skills. Because if I have to talk about the situation in Italy, or maybe better in Milan, I must say the idea of times policies is not yet exist. I try to explain better. There are the politician, the municipality decided for many little actions, but also not so, but very important. For example, I told you they decided for changing the entry in the school, in the shops, and so on. But nobody talked about times. Nobody talked or make some reflections about urban times policies. This, I was really shocked about that, because in my mind is so normal that when I talk about hours, I change something in the life, in my life, in people's life. So it's normal to think about times urban policies, but I must say, unfortunately, nobody in my city are talking about that. For this, I think the idea, perhaps the idea, a concrete idea of academy, a subject which have the possibility to organize a research pilot, a European research pilot, for example, could be very important to involve students, teachers on one hand, and politicians on the other hand. Otherwise, everything Ulrich told about something was broken. Yes, the idea of time policies now doesn't exist. Yes, exists in Bolzano, exists in Bergamo, but that's all. And it's significant that there is no one from Milan, from the municipality of Milan in Barcelona, for this very important and very interesting week. And this is significant. So I think we all together, of course, I am just an old researcher, but we need to move some at the culture surface. Otherwise, nothing happens.
Thank you, Francesca. We have now a question from the audience.
Not a question, but a statement.
Okay.
I think the academic system is not fostering the transversal and the cooperation with practice. Ulrich said that in the past there was a very close connection and research with the practice, and at the moment the academic system is not rewarding these kind of research. On the other hand, there is a big upswing, in my view, of temporal research in the academic system. This is diffusing quite broadly, but these are very scattered and disconnected communities. And I think an academy could be a very important actor to connect these kind of different communities. And the third point I want to make is we wanted to bring German local authorities to sign the Barcelona declarations, and they, several we approached, refused, telling us that they are very much in favor of it and in favor of the topic, but they fear that they run into new obligations with responsibilities which they are fearing to take on at the moment. But on the other hand, and this is also a point, an academy could a bit smoothening to overcome these fears of local authorities and to put forward the idea of temporal policies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. More questions? Yes, Arianna, and yes, come on.
No, just to add to some of your comments on this disconnect between citizens and research, I think that is also interesting, and this is something that came up to my mind now, but all the investment that the European Union actually is doing on citizen science, because I think that time is actually a perfect subject for that. Something that attains the lives of citizens, of every citizen in the world, and that can help to bring some of this funding or projects on citizen science to the issue of time and time policies. But because it's exactly that what we are missing, right? To have this connection with the, you were talking, sometimes we are here and people are here and we cannot talk the same language. So I think that this sort of push for citizen science, and I think this, in the new budget in the EU, if I'm not mistaken, it's been reinforced actually, can be one tool we can have, let's say, on the academy.
And, sorry? And can you tell me, each of you, 1, 2, 3 issues you think that are the issues that the academy have to start with? 1, 2, 3 issues. Yes, for example, Ulrich?
We have to make a selection.
Brainstorm.
Yeah.
It's a brainstorming moment. You don't have to think of it.
It's a brainstorming moment.
Yes.
Possibly the care crisis.
The care crisis.
Yes, the care crisis and temporal policies stemming from that.
Jean-Yves?
It's probably linked. It's about the question of, I think, of climate change. What kind of, on which kind of levels we can action, we can make active time levels. I mean, for instance, desynchronization of hours of work, but also. This morning we talked about 4 days working week, and what stressed me is that the person who were in favor of that says that we become more productive, you know. So we are still in the paradigm of the increase, you know, always increase. And if we turn to the care policies, more and more taking care of others, of nature, of people, you know, of our people, children, parents, but also the others, for instance, migrants and so on. We should perhaps change the paradigm. And for me, climate change is a possibility to think about a new paradigm. So perhaps like Polanyi, the great transformation, you know. The great transformation could be not to say we will decrease, but the element to take in account for measuring the increase, the growth, you know, are not the same. We will have to change. Ivan Illich also, a long time ago, I think Ivan Illich was 40 years ago, you know. He has insisted on that, the fact that we are losing different, or André Gorz and so on. So it's not to say we will return back, we will decrease. No, it's another way to think about the growth and climate change, but also, you know, equality between the gender, between social equality. All these issues are, for me, very important. And I just want to add something about the linkage between, I will talk about that during the session in the ITER conference. For instance, ITER is doing, each year there is a conference. It's the 33 this year.
43.
It's 40, well.
Yeah, because we missed the Japan one. Yeah, 32, so, okay. But there are a lot of work. They are not published. Most of them are not published. They are PhD, young PhD with new methodologies, new ways, new ideas, and so on. And they are not published. They are not used. They are not used by, and this was what has stressed me, and Ignaz knows that, and other people from ITER know that, Ulrich. They knew that since ITER conference in Rome, I think it was in 2005, the first time I've talked about time policies and how to try to link both. And I am very happy that this year, we succeed to try to make the connection, and we succeed to make that. And I insist on that because it's very important to you know, I know that one of the objective of the BTUI, of the Barcelona Time Use Initiative, is to change some behaviors concerning, for instance, the sleeping attitude, the sleeping behaviors. But before changing that, we have to do a lot of research, and there are data on that. I know that there is a post-doctorant PhD from Laurent Lénard, a colleague of me, she is working on sleeping issues using time use data. And I think this could be very useful to have So we work on a national level, but it's important to do the same, to replicate the same at a local level. But the problem will be methodological problem, because we have not perhaps a sufficient population and so on. So we have a lot of things to do with the academy. And also, perhaps the term of academy, the term of academy, to say academy, it sounds too much, perhaps university, academics, but in our project, there will be elected people, there will be technicians, there will be inhabitants also, you know. The Italian, when they began with time policies, they have also a lot of new methodology, and particularly to make inhabitants to participate, to co-design a table, for instance, where there were not only the employers, the trade unions, and the municipality, but also the inhabitants, not as consulting the inhabitants, but participating to the diagnostic and also to diagnosis, and also to the research of solutions.
Sarah?
Yeah, I was exactly to explain this, if you let me, very briefly, because to avoid this discussion between academy and citizenship, some years ago, we tried a new methodology that it was designed by Teresa Torns. It's an investigator, a Catalan investigator, with her team, and it was the creation of some tables with 4 actors, not 3 actors as usually, but 4 actors. And they were trade unions, employees, civil society, and researchers academy. And so every table was discussing a different subject, and they needed to end with a commitment and with a solution to the problem, and it worked very well. So I was
a good methodology.
Yes, and I think that maybe we can go study it and actualize this, and maybe we can work with it in our academy.
Integrate into the academy.
Yeah, into the academy. Yeah, one of the methodologies, of course, not the only one. And to answer your question, I think that some very interesting issues that we could put on the table to begin, it's mobility and time. I think mobility is one of the great things to study in our cities now at this moment. Time poverty, not only between men and women, but between the people in the higher level of the organizations and the lowest level, because there's a different impact of control of time. And how to tackle complex emergencies, like the pandemic that we have lived, or other possible pandemics, I hope not, but we don't know, and climate change.
You know it very well as a CEO, complex emergencies management.
We have a good program, huh?
Ignace?
Well, at a more general level, I think almost all social time problems have to do with synchronization. So I think we, at the Time Academy, should study synchronization, how different social times, can be synchronized. I think if we think of work-life balance, care crisis, working hours, opening hours, school times, time poverty, in fact, it has all to do with the fact that we have different life spheres with different demands, different roles, and it's very difficult to bring these together, and how we can do that. And I think, as the Italian case studies show, and also, I guess, the Barcelona case show, the best thing to study that and to experiment with that is the regional or the local level. Well, I visited some of the projects in Italy, and that's exactly what they are doing, trying to synchronize different life spheres, opening hours with school times and working times. And I think this is something that we should learn, and how different levels of time, personal time, interaction time, institutional time, cultural time, can be brought together. And
Okay.
So desynchronization also.
Yeah, well, maybe, yeah.
Synchronization.
Yeah.
Yes.
New kind of synchronization.
Arianna and then Francesca.
Going almost last is a bit difficult. I would maybe add something that I think it's a subtopic of what you just said, but I think that it's a very interesting topic, the irregular working hours, since work is one of the main things that sort of mandate our time organization. I think that we are seeing everywhere an increase of irregular working hours, and I mean from platform workers to people in shift in different industries, nurses, emergency personnel. You talk about complex emergencies. So I think that these are people that are having great difficulties on managing their time, and that is impacting their lives. So I think that the synchronization here, it's really a bigger problem maybe than a regular office worker or an industrial worker that has really marked time. So I think that the increase on irregular working hours will be a topic in the future.
And Francesca?
Comment. I think two issues are very important. Equality and social inclusion. These two concepts are strictly related to mobility, in my opinion, and desynchronization. But I have to stress that even if we have some practice, as I told before, about, for example, practices of desynchronization, we need to emphasize the intellectual, cultural comments and reflection. Otherwise, in Milan, we have a sort of desynchronization, but there is no link with the real significance of desynchronization. It's just an action. It's just a practice. For this reason, I think an academy is very important, but in the academy, we need to have a short position with the politician. Policy is, in my mind, in my opinion, is very important. Otherwise, we don't. The idea, the vision of time doesn't grow, that's all. That's all.
Okay. And our last brainstorming, before we finish, which is the first step of the academy? And Arianna, I begin with you.
So you just left me the difficult ones,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Maybe it's today?
I think the first step is today, for sure. And I think that the second will be just bring more people to the table. We are here a very big group and a great group, qualitatively speaking. But next step is bring more people to the table and integrate this myriad of stakeholders we've been commenting.
Ignace?
Not only today, but this week, I think it's important. So it's very nice to bring these two worlds more or less together, researchers from IATUR, but of course there's only one group, there should be more, but also tomorrow I'm curious to come to the workshop and to see the practical initiatives and learn from what is living in these different initiatives. So I think this week is an important step, and there should be more like this and even more different researchers. Well, IATUR is multidisciplinary, different levels also. There are academics, there are statisticians from statistical offices, there are people in policy. So but we don't have chronobiologists, as far as I know, or not many of them, or sleep experts, so but this week is an important week, I guess. Yeah.
Sarah?
Yes, I agree. I think that this week is the first step. The declaration that we are going to sign all together on Friday is maybe the definition of our mission. I think that we have our mission clear, so now we need to define the objectives and the actions. So we are very close to the to the beginning.
For me, it's not really the first step. I think it's the second step. The first step was in Strasbourg when we have begun to think about that. But it was in 1990, okay, 1919, I think, yes. And so there has been the pandemic, and now I think we should really, this is starting point, you know, the second step, where we see, because in Strasbourg it was the idea, you know, what we thought about that, but now we see more what kind of form of content, of action, it could have. So I think it's very important, and what I think that at the end of this week, we should build a kind of to give more concrete aspect to the project. And I think that the suggestion by this member of the European Parliament to build a European pilot project, I don't know really what it is, but you know better than I, could be something. I think we now we know that the Commission is academy friendly, even if they don't do things, but it is important to have their intellectual support, I think, and then perhaps to try to begin with a project to give some reality to this idea.
This pilot project Ulrich was talking about.
Yeah, and the pilot project could be, I don't know what it is, but Ulrich, perhaps.
Ulrich and Francesca?
Yes, I just can underline many proposals, but the first idea was to create a European summer school. A European summer school, and I don't know the exact relationship to the Time Use Week, but there could be a relationship, because I really trust, I have now 1 year of experience with these Barcelona initiators, and I have a great trust in what you are doing, and I assume you could develop it in such a direction. A summer school would be a very positive connotation for people to go to a summer school on time, everyday lifetime. That's not a congress. That's not like Yatur, which is good, but it would be a coming together with after COVID, with personal contact and so on. And the other thing which I'm always thinking about, the young member of the European Parliament, he told me, why don't you go to the research sponsor department with your project? And I said, we did several times. But here takes place what Dietrich Henkel mentioned a couple of minutes ago, that the research system is not friendly for interactive types of research, or what we call real experiments. We need to have the fundings for real experiments, not just research who does what when, how often, and so on, which days of the week, and so on. I appreciate that research, but you know, I had the honor to be in the scientific committee of this IATO conference, and I read about 60 or 70 abstracts. And they all were a bit this type of who does when, what, why, and so on. Interesting, but not solving any problem. And we have to find these fundings where practical experiments are at stake. So it was not by chance that Eurexter was a project of the social dialogue and not of the research DG of the European Commission. And our project with Karin Jurczyk on the optional time use budget, which she will present during the IATO conference. This was promoted by a newly created fund of the German Ministry of Labor, who are interested in implementation, not just research, but how does do programs and norms and so on, how do they develop in practice? What happens practically, and how can this be changed? And so I would ask you all to think more about the fundings where actors are interested in practical outcomes and not just scientific positiveness.
Okay, thank you. And last, Francesca, very quickly, please.
I agree completely with Ulrich. And it's one of the first things I underline. We need financial support, of course, to do researches, but some I can say objective researches where we can practice some ideas. And by the way, this is for this reason, I think some actors from the politics can be important, because through the policy we should practice concrete idea. So I hope by the end of this week we can have better and more ideas how to go on, because I think this is a crucial moment for time. Well, I really hope we can go on. And thank you to everybody.
So we have a lot of work. For instance, 10 important issues to start the academy: care crisis, climate change, 4-day weeks, mobility and time poverty, complex emergencies, synchronization and desynchronization, irregular working hours, equality, and social inclusion. So let's start with the academy and let's continue with the Time Use Week.
Thank you.